So, Russians go to the polls this weekend to elect a new State Duma, the lower house of parliament. And first, here's some basics. Some 14 parties will be contesting the election, competing for 450 seats. Half of those, 225 seats, will be elected by proportional representation according to party lists in a Russia-wide vote. And half of those will be elected in a first-past-the-post vote in 225 separate districts across Russia. But here's the thing. None of that stuff actually really matters. Why? Well, because elections in Russia aren't really elections. They're fixed. The Kremlin has a whole toolkit to make sure it gets the result it wants, that only the ruling United Russia and a handful of other regime-loyal parties will win seats in the Duma. They use state-controlled media to shape the information environment. Only parties and candidates the Kremlin wants to win seats will get any airtime. They use bureaucratic maneuvers to exclude parties and candidates from the ballot. They use so-called administrative resources like busing state employees to the polls to vote for whom they are told. And if all that isn't enough, they can always resort to good old-fashioned ballot stuffing. Now, all this doesn't mean that Russian elections aren't important. They are. They're legitimization rituals in their political theater. If the theater is good, if the Kremlin could secure a respectable turnout and a victory for pro-Kremlin parties, well then, the ritual was a success. That was the case in the 2007 elections when everything went off without a hitch. But if the Kremlin needs to resort to obvious ballot stuffing, well then, the ritual will have been a failure. That's what happened back in 2011, when massive anti-government demonstrations broke out after the vote. So we'll soon see whether this year's show will be good theater or bad theater. I'm Whitmore, host of the Power Vertical podcast, and this was a special Power Vertical Explainer.